Some of the experiences and the really tough things that I went through in my life.
It was heartbreaking that someone would do that to another person.
Has Don Jr. deceived those he holds dearest? Kimberly Guilfoyle and Kai Trump have revealed shocking allegations about the man everyone thought they knew. After quietly lurking in the shadows for months, these two finally reveal evidence that calls into question Don Jr.'s entire public persona. People close to the Trump world are scrambling to contain the fallout, but it may be too late. Stay tuned because the truth might be truly darker than anyone imagined. The saga of Kimberly Guilfoyle, Kai Trump, and Don Jr. The Trump name has always come with a hefty dose of attention, sometimes for publicity, sometimes for politics, and often for personal drama. In this particular saga, the key figures are Kimberly Guilfoyle, Donald Trump Jr., and his teenage daughter, Kai Trump. Their interactions have been anything but dull, creating a whirlwind of rumors and speculation. But unlike fleeting tabloid stories, this drama has persisted, giving onlookers a chance to piece together a puzzle of breakups, social media moves, and sudden shifts in who's in and who's out. It all started quietly. Guilfoyle had been a public figure at Don Jr.'s side for quite some time, appearing with him at big events and family functions, and even sharing moments of everyday life on various social media platforms. Meanwhile, Kai, Don Jr.'s oldest child, stood by with her own online presence, occasionally offering glimpses of life within the Trump circle. Everything seemed to be going fine. Then something changed, and the resulting tensions were impossible to hide. What was once a straightforward engagement between Don Jr. and Guilfoyle gradually gave way to signs of distance. Gone were the days when they appeared perfectly in sync, replaced by sparse sightings and silent distractions anytime they were in the same setting. The news soon broke that the couple had decided to part ways. If that had been the entire story, it might have ended with a brief wave of headlines. But this was no ordinary family breakup. Kai became a central character when she made certain subtle moves on social media, the kind teenagers often deploy to show favor or disfavor among friends. Only here, it was playing out on a brand new stage, because the Trump family had a knack for drawing onlooker curiosity. Then there was the question of other people stepping into Don Jr.'s life, making big events like the 2025 inauguration feel strangely tense. A new face, Bettina Anderson, walked confidently into the picture, further complicating Guilfoyle's role in the family's gatherings. Everything that happened, whether a deleted follow on Instagram, a missing face in a group photo, or an awkward moment at a formal party, took on heightened significance. Fans and critics alike searched for meaning in each gesture, fueling anticipation about who would occupy the spotlight next. Despite neither Guilfoyle nor Don Jr. publicly broadcasting every detail, the drama was easy to see. It was a story of loyalty and subtle snubs, all taking place under the watchful eye of social media and the constant hum of family obligations, when Guilfoyle and Don Jr. broke up. A breakup rarely happens overnight, especially when it involves people who share a high-profile life. In the case of Don Jr. and Kimberly Guilfoyle, the end of their engagement took shape over several months, though outsiders only saw the final announcement. Early signs were subtle: fewer photographs together, stiffer interactions at public events, and occasional comments from curious observers wondering why the pair seemed less active around each other. At first, many assumed they were simply busy. Participation in public campaigns, traveling to meet potential donors, and maintaining their own business or media relationships tend to consume significant energy. Yet, hints of discord kept surfacing. Rumors swirled that Guilfoyle and Don Jr. were heading down separate paths. For a while, these were simply rumors. People waited for either a unifying photo or a confirmation that all was not well. Eventually, the whispers turned to reality. The announcement came through articles detailing how they'd chosen to call off the engagement. For a couple who had once projected a united front, the news fell like a hammer blow on fans who followed them. To complicate matters, the split happened just as the family was preparing for a season loaded with public appearances, from potential political rallies to formal gatherings. The timing intensified the public's focus, since it's near impossible to hide such a personal shift during high-profile events. Curiosity soared regarding what caused the breakup. Some speculated about disagreements over future goals or the demands of their respective careers. Others claimed a clash of personalities had begun to develop behind the scenes. The real details never fully emerged, leaving observers to piece together unverified hints. One day they were engaged, traveling across the country hand in hand. The next, Guilfoyle stood without Don Jr. by her side at notable occasions. Despite the uncertainty, one thing was clear: their separation was more impactful than a quiet parting. Guilfoyle had been actively involved in the Trump family's events, forging relationships with not only Don Jr., but also his children. When the breakup happened, it threatened to rearrange those existing ties. If you were used to seeing Guilfoyle mingle with the likes of Kai or Don Jr.'s siblings, that dynamic looked set for a major transformation. Yet the real story kicked into high gear only after the breakup was confirmed. Guilfoyle's public outings became more sporadic in Trump-related spaces, and Don Jr. carried on with his schedule, though now absent the partner he once introduced at nearly every major event. Even the simplest gatherings seemed to change in tone without Guilfoyle's presence. Then, the focus shifted to the question of who in the family would side with whom. Floating in the background was a sense that the story wasn't done unfolding, that the actual drama was just beginning. And indeed it was. Kai Trump's social media drama. Most teenagers see social media as a place to share daily highlights, joke around with friends, or post snapshots of special moments. In the Trump family, however, every Instagram follow or unfollow carries a deeper meaning. Kai Trump showed just how potent these gestures can be when she seemingly cut digital ties with Kimberly Guilfoyle after the breakup. This action might sound trivial. People unfollow each other on social platforms all the time. But it caused a significant stir among those who tuned into the family's private affairs. It started with eagle-eyed watchers noticing that Kai no longer followed Guilfoyle on Instagram. Studio lot rumors about tension between step-like figures and older children are common. But this appeared more concrete. The quick, frictionless act of pressing an unfollow button spoke volumes. After all, Kai had previously seemed friendly and amiable toward Guilfoyle, at least in public. Why the sudden decision to sever that virtual link? Complicating the picture, Guilfoyle still followed Kai, which made the whole scenario look more one-sided. This imbalance fueled speculation that something had caused Kai to distance herself. Without official statements, fans had only one place to look: the swirl of speculation online. Some insisted Kai was making a clear statement of loyalty to her father, who was rumored to have already moved on. Others believed there had been private tensions brewing between Kai and Guilfoyle long before the breakup. In the midst of these theories, no one had definitive answers. Only Kai herself knew. Then came another online surprise. Kai posted a vlog featuring the family celebrating on election night, a moment typically filled with congratulatory images and group photos. Observers noticed a glaring omission in the footage. Kimberly Guilfoyle was nowhere in sight. Given Guilfoyle's previous involvement in campaign celebrations, her abrupt disappearance from Kai's content felt more than coincidental. It seemed to signal a shift in the family narrative, with Guilfoyle effectively removed from this record of a special evening. While Kai never explained the reasons behind these choices, her actions had ripple effects. Guilfoyle's absence in a group photo and the unfollow made a bigger impact than any direct words might have. It was as if Kai was quietly editing Guilfoyle out of her life story. People discussed whether Kai's mother, Vanessa Trump, might have influenced her perspective. Others suggested Kai was just picking a side in the breakup drama, or maybe even dealing with teenage emotions that can be volatile. Whatever the truth, the result stood out. Kai had drawn a bold line that Guilfoyle no longer seemed to cross. This online drama placed Kai at the center of the story. She moved from being a background figure, known primarily as Don Jr.'s oldest child, to someone actively reshaping the family's public narrative. In many families, social media changes go unnoticed, but this was a world-famous family dealing with the aftermath of a breakup. The signals Kai sent gained real weight, triggering headlines and fresh speculation. By taking these steps, Kai showed just how powerful a modern teenager can be when it comes to rewriting the script of a high-profile household. The inauguration tension. Breakups can be awkward enough in ordinary life, but add in a major public event with dignitaries, cameras, and potential new partners, and the tension amplifies dramatically. That was exactly what happened during the 2025 inauguration celebrations, where Don Jr., newly single and under careful watch, found himself in the same venues as Kimberly Guilfoyle. What made it all the more sensational was the presence of someone else in Don Jr.'s orbit, Bettina Anderson, rumored to be a new romantic interest. Inauguration festivities typically involve glitzy receptions, formal dinners, and plenty of mingling among influential figures. For Guilfoyle, it was a chance to maintain her professional ties and greet people she had known through her involvement with the political community. For Don Jr., these events were part of his family duties, now colored by the fact that he was no longer with Guilfoyle. Observers described the atmosphere as electric from the moment they both stepped onto the red carpets. People craned their necks to see how close or far apart they would stand, who they would approach in conversation, and if any iciness might break through their public smiles. Meanwhile, Anderson's appearance on Don Jr.'s arm added a fascinating layer. This was unfamiliar territory, guilty or not. It can be challenging watching an ex move on right before your eyes. Rumors circulated that Guilfoyle kept a casual but watchful gaze on the pair throughout the events. Though no dramatic confrontations were reported, the underlying discomfort wasn't hard to sense. Smiles were in place, handshakes were exchanged, but behind the scenes, one could almost feel the silent questions hovering in the air. Some bystanders recalled fleeting moments where Guilfoyle and Anderson nearly ended up in the same conversational group. In an ordinary breakup situation, that might prompt a quick excuse to step away. But in a high-stakes political setting, both women held their composure, politely chatting with those around them while maintaining a careful distance. To the broader audience, it was like watching a soap opera in real life. Will there be a public showdown? Will they pretend everything is fine? As the parties dragged on, the tension didn't let up. Guilfoyle, who once might have mingled hand in hand with Don Jr., was forced to carve out a new role as a guest of her own making. Don Jr., meanwhile, introduced Anderson to new acquaintances, paving a path that Guilfoyle had walked before. It felt like passing the baton, but in a way that underscored the recent shift in relationships. By the end of the inauguration festivities, no massive scene had erupted. No heated arguments, no tears, and no public walkouts. Yet the participants and observers alike were left with a vivid impression. The emotional lines dividing Guilfoyle, Don Jr., and the new figure in his life had grown stronger. It was clear that even if Guilfoyle tried to be gracious, the practical reality of seeing your ex with someone else, especially in a place as grand as an inauguration celebration, would leave lasting memories. The stage was set for continued speculation on how these evolving relationships would play out next. Enter Bettina Anderson. For Kimberly Guilfoyle, the breakup itself was a blow, but discovering Don Jr. had someone new in his life so swiftly turned heads. Enter Bettina Anderson, who appeared almost overnight, attending high society events, sharing quiet nods with Don Jr., and sometimes standing arm in arm with him at gatherings. Their public appearances, though not over the top, signaled that Don Jr. had moved on from his previous engagement. And if the timing seemed surprising, so was the contrast between Anderson's style and Guilfoyle's. Anderson, often described as a polished Florida socialite, embraced the attention with ease. She wore stylish outfits that broadcast confidence, smiled for the cameras with practiced flair, and seemed less involved in the behind-the-scenes political grind than Guilfoyle had been. This shift in personality type was noticeable. Guilfoyle, a former prosecutor and television presence, came with a strong, outspoken edge. Anderson projected a softer, more laid-back vibe, which some believed meshed well with Don Jr.'s lifestyle in a post-campaign phase. The real point of interest was how this new relationship affected the Trump family dynamic. With Guilfoyle gone, some had assumed Don Jr. might remain unattached for a while. Instead, Anderson fit seamlessly into the social circuit. Insiders whispered that she charmed certain Trump associates at private dinners, garnering positive feedback that suggested Don Jr. was heading in a more relaxed direction romantically. Anderson's presence also reverberated through the family's younger generation. If Guilfoyle had once enjoyed a bond with Don Jr.'s children, that space now had the potential to be filled by Anderson. It was unclear whether Kai and her siblings had warmed up to the newcomer or retained loyalty to Guilfoyle, especially since Kai's Instagram actions pointed to resentment toward her father's ex-fiancée. Yet if anyone hoped the children might reject Anderson, there was no sign of that happening. Instead, rumors hinted they might find Anderson friendly and easier to relate to, increasing the emotional gap separating them from Guilfoyle. From Guilfoyle's vantage point, Anderson's sudden rise must have felt unsettling. Guilfoyle had once been the one showing up at events arm in arm with Don Jr., greeting his social circle and presenting a united front. Now, photographs captured Don Jr. escorting another woman, who seemed more than capable of occupying that exact place in his world. Although no public statements were made about tension between the two women, the environment of overlapping acquaintances and formal parties suggested that Guilfoyle had to either sidestep or coexist with Anderson whenever their paths inevitably crossed. All of this underlined how quickly life can move in high-profile circles. One day, Guilfoyle was the visible partner, regularly at Don Jr.'s side. The next, she found herself replaced by someone with a distinctly different style. For an outsider, it might appear sudden, but for insiders, it was a sign that Don Jr. was forging a new chapter without Guilfoyle. And for those who enjoyed following family intrigue, Anderson's arrival sparked intense discussions about the shifting balance in one of America's most talked about families.